Much respect to all you Stoveminders. You've made it through the winter meetings. The stove was scorching hot. The pot was boiling, and you've survived. And here's your reward. Another manifestation of the Stoveminders CUBSCAST. A lot of things went down, and I gotta cover all of it. So it's gonna be a long-ass episode. Make some tea, make some coffee, sit back, and enjoy the fruits of my labor and the labor of all the Major League Baseball players out there. This year's winter meetings, which went down this past week from Monday to Thursday in San Diego, California, did not disappoint. In fact, they kind of blew my mind because I was not expecting all three of the top free agents in this year's class to get deals. But they did in the span of like 3 days of each other. Gerrit Cole, record-breaking contract for a starting pitcher, given to him by who else? The New York Yankees. Steven Strasburg, on the other hand, he's a loyal guy. He spent his entire pro career with one team and one team only, the Washington Nationals, and he's coming back for another 7 years. But Nationals fans will have to say goodbye to Anthony Rendon. He's going to Disneyland, signing with the Anaheim Angels of Los Angeles. And a bunch of other deals went down. Some Japanese content for you, some Didi Gregorius on the move. But let's get started with Gerrit Cole. Oh, Gerrit Cole, what can I say? This man, 9 years, 324 million American US dollars. That is insane. This guy's going to be making $36 million a year. What do you even do with that kind of money? I don't know. He's going to be signed to his year 38 season. $36 million represents a tremendous raise from the $13.5 million he made last year. And this deal also represents something of a coming around moment for Cole and the Yankees. See, the New York Pinstripes originally drafted Cole in the first round out of high school in 2008. Cole opted not to sign. He decided to go to college. He went to UCLA, pitched very well there, well enough that the Pittsburgh Pirates drafted him again in 2011, first overall. And with them he signed, and with them he made his major league debut. And in those 7 seasons he's had to date, he's a 3-time All-Star. He's finished top 5 in Cy Young voting 3 times. And in my humble opinion, he was robbed this year. But anyway, he has some good years in Pittsburgh, no doubt. But Cole really took his game to the next level after coming to Houston, where he put together 2 fantastic seasons of sub-290 ERA, sub-270 FIP baseball. He threw 412 innings over those 2 years, so he's been healthy and he's been effective. In those 412 innings, he's got 602 strikeouts. How? How, Sway? And a whip below 1. So, I'm not even surprised he got such a big deal. Insane. Well, 2019 was Cole's best year to date. He threw a major league high 326 strikeouts. That's a 13.8 strikeouts per 9 inning average. He also led the majors in ERA plus with 185. That is ERA above average, with 100 being the average as adjusted for ballparks. Through 212 innings, where he managed a 250 ERA, a 264 FIP, and a whip of just 0.895. And back to those strikeout numbers, because it's just insane what he did. 27.7 swinging strike rate, and 40% of his plate appearances, or the 40% of the plate appearances where he was pitching, resulted in a strikeout. 79% of his 33 starts were quality. Not much more I could say. The guy was just dominant in 2019. He's been very good the past couple years. Now I've heard some people say, the Gerrit Cole's only good because the Astros were cheating. Perhaps. But I don't think that tells the whole story. Yeah, he's been phenomenal the past 2 seasons, and he's been striking out guys at just an insane rate. But I just want to point out that in 2015, when he was in Pittsburgh and when he was just 24 years old, Cole put together a very good season as well. 2.60 ERA that year, a 2.66 FIP, 8.7 K per 9 average, which is obviously not as great as the 13 plus or the 12 plus he had in 2018, but still very good. And looking at his home and away splits, in a lot of ways he was actually better on the road. Yeah, he had more strikeouts at home, where he did pitch 14 more innings, but he had a lower ERA away from home, and his strikeout average was basically the same. His whip was fairly higher on the road, but still good numbers away from Minute Maid. So unlike Alex Bregman, where I am kind of worried about this deal and where I would exercise a little bit of caution is the fact that Gerrit Cole is a power pitcher. This guy's got an average fastball, four-seam fastball velocity of 97.1 miles per hour and a spin rate north of 2,500. And anything above 2,400 is just good. He relies a lot on the punch-outs. So you got to ask, is he going to be good in 5 or 6 years of this 9-year pact? This contract includes a opt-out after 2024, so that's in 5 years. I seriously doubt he will take that, considering he'll be making $36 million every single year. I don't know if inflation in Major League Baseball will continue to rise or what the outcome of the impending strike will be, but we'll see. No trade clause, of course. And what this means for the Yankees is their rotation next season will boast Gerrit Cole at the helm, with Luis Severino hopefully healthy for them, Masahiro Tanaka, and James Paxton. That's pretty scary. I'm confident to call that the best rotation in baseball. Obviously, the Yankees will need Severino to be healthy. They'll need Tanaka to have a bit of a bounce back year, but I'm very confident with that. I'd be very confident with that group. Now, as for payroll, the Yankees, appropriately so, now have the highest payroll in baseball. At the moment, that's pre-arbitration and pre any other signings they may make, they stand at $235 million, which is just $13 million below the highest luxury tax penalty. So I'll be curious to see if they can somehow get below that. Going back to Mr. Gerrit Cole for a second, well, we've already seen the fallout of this deal. He's had to get a haircut and shave, and it's weird. It's really weird. He looks like Brett Gardner, who, by the way, is re-signed with the Yankees. I'll get to that in a second. Of course, New York wasn't the only team trying to get the guy. Cole was originally from California, so the Dodgers and the Angels were both very much in the running. Both teams offered him 8-year deals, with the Dodgers right at $300 million and the Angels just below $300 million. So the Yankees broke the bank, of course, offered him the biggest deal, and how can you say no? And it's not like he's going to a team that won't be competing. Congratulations, Gerrit Cole. You broke a record. Now, the fact that the Angels missed out on Cole was a story in itself. Not just because Cole was from California and he had some incentive to go there as a result, but because the Angels are under a lot of pressure to start putting together some pieces around Mr. Michael Trout and start trying to win some games, you know what I mean? Start trying to compete, at least make the playoffs, right? Well, they may have missed out on Cole, and they seriously need pitching even now, but luckily for them, they did have the money to go and sign the top position player on the market, third baseman Anthony Rendon. 7 years, $245 million. Rendon, who's now signed through his age 36 season, will be making, on average, $35 million a year. But that contract is pretty backloaded. He's going to be making just $25.5 million in 2020. Then it's going to rise up a bit, and then starting in his last 4 seasons, he's going to be making $38 million a year. Insane. I don't think the Angels learned anything from the Albert Pujols trade, which is sad. I wish him the best of luck. Rendon is a very good player. He's a 7-year veteran. He's got an all-star under his belt, 2 Silver Sluggers. He's a career 290, 369, 490 hitter. 2019 was perhaps, I would say, his best season to date. He finished 3rd in MVP voting, slashed 319, 412, 598, hit 34 home runs, and he led the majors with 126 RBIs, while also notching 44 doubles. For that matter, Rendon's been very good the last 3 years, where he's batted above 300 with a on-base percentage north of 374. He's a guy who's good for 24 plus and home runs and 40 plus doubles. And this dude just has a ridiculous walk to strikeout ratio. In 2019, for instance, he took 80 walks and struck out just 86 times. Defensively, Rendon is, I would say, good. I would say above average. He had plus 8 defensive runs saved in 2019 and has plus 11 on his career, playing almost exclusively out of third base. What that means for the Angels, however, is they're going to have to move one of their better young players, David Fletcher, who was a third baseman last year, over to perhaps second base. Just looking at it right now, Fletcher does have experience around the field, so he can move over to second, which would probably push another youngin who hasn't been as good in the majors, Luis Rengifo, over to the bench. Or Fletcher could perhaps go over to left field, and then the Angels can move Brian Goodwin over to right field. But that's for Joe Madden to decide, and we know how much he loves to fuck around with his lineup. So with this deal, the Angels team payroll at the moment rises to $154 million, which is just above league average and well under the luxury tax by about $50 million. But this is pre-arbitration and any other signings they may make. As I mentioned, the Angels desperately need any sort of starting pitcher. They're so desperate, in fact, they gave up 4 minor leaguers for Dylan Bundy. And the Angels now own the 2 most expensive position players on average, with Trout and Rendon. But what could I say? A huge deal for an Angels team that needed to make a big splash. I would say, you know what? Their lineup is actually looking pretty good. Trout, Rendon, Ohtani, Pujols he's still got some pop. Fletcher's a good hitter, as I mentioned. And Andrelton Simmons is in there. And you know what? Let's give a little due to Mr. Tommy La Stella as well. So congratulations to Billy Epler for doing something. Now go and sign some fucking pitchers. Well, actually, 3 teams were in the running late on Rendon. The Nationals were still trying to re-sign him. Los Angeles Dodgers, and surprising it may be, the Texas Rangers. Well, Rendon is originally from Texas. The Rangers offered him a 6-year deal, just under $200 million. Yeah, Angels blew that one way out of the water. So the Nationals will be without Anthony Rendon as they try to win a second consecutive World Series championship in 2020, but they will have Steven Strasburg again. Strasser signed a 7-year, $245 million, exactly the same contract as Rendon, actually, to stay in D.C. He signed through to his age 38 season at $35 million a year on average. But it's well earned for a guy who was drafted by the Nationals and who spent his entire major league career here. 10 seasons with 3 All-Star nods and 2 top 5 Cy Young voting finishes. Kind of weird that Strasburg's never won a Cy Young, because he's been pretty consistent in his career. In 2019, Strasburg threw 209 innings. That was only the second time in his career that he's eclipsed 200 innings. He's had a bit of an injury history. I'll get to that in a second. Last season, he also threw 251 strikeouts, had a 3.32 ERA to go with a 3.25 FIP, a 1.038 WHIP, 51.5% ground ball rate, pretty good. And about 2/3 of his 33 starts were quality. This contract comes with no opt-outs or options. He's in here for the long haul. This pushes the Nationals' payroll up to to $146 million at the moment. They still got some room to maneuver to sign a possible replacement to Rendon, maybe add some reinforcement to the bullpen. We'll see. Strasburg had 4 years and $100 million left before he opted out to take this sort of quasi-extension. So very similar to what Clayton Kershaw did last year, where he still had, I think, 2 or 3 years left on his contract, opted out and signed a new one for a raise. Yeah, this is the kind of deal when you take your career team to the World Series. I don't fault either party for doing this. And as for being a long haul, a long-term deal, there are some questions. There's like, Strasburg, he's been banged up here and there. Yeah, true. But even when he was injured, Strasburg was fairly effective. So between 2015 and 2018, where Strasburg never pitched more than 145 innings per season, he still managed a 3.27 ERA. So the guy's effective. He's more of a finesse and ground ball pitcher than he is a strike him out power pitcher like Cole is. So in the long term, this deal makes a little more sense. Of course, we'll see how this all works out for DC down the line, because at the moment, their top 3 pitchers, Strasburg, Scherzer, and Corbin, account for 40% of their team payroll. Jesus Christ. But they're keeping that really good rotation intact. That's great news for them, because that NL East is competitive. They squeaked in there through the wild card last year, but there's competition down the line. Competition from teams like the Philadelphia Phillies. You thought they were done after that Zach Wheeler trade. You were grossly incorrect. They went out and signed shortstop Didi Gregorius to a 1-year deal worth $14 million. Now, a 1-year deal for Gregorius is actually expected, considering in 2019 he spent the first half of the season recovering from Tommy John, didn't play at all till June, and in the 82 games he did end up playing, Gregorius batted just .238 with a .276 on-base percentage. His strikeout percentage skyrocketed, and although he did hit 32 extra base hits in that span, altogether that was his worst season since Arizona. And yeah, Gregorius used to be a Diamondback. So was John Segura. So now the Phillies have 2 ex-Diamondback infielders up the middle. So this is a case of Gregorius betting on himself, thinking, hey, you know what, I'm going to put together a comeback season and cash out on a more stable deal next hot stove. And it's a good bet that he will get it together. In the previous 4 seasons, he's averaged a .274 batting and a .319 on base. He's hit north of 20 home runs 3 times, and is a good for 20-plus doubles kind of guy. The knock on Didi is he's a below-average fielder, and what this means for the Phillies infield is he will take over shortstop while Segura will move over to second base, where they have an opening with Cesar Hernandez gone. Phillies can still stand to add a third baseman, but hey, this is a team that's continuing to be aggressive, spending that dumb money, and they're just assembling a team that's talented on paper, hoping that they'll actually perform. Philadelphia payroll currently stands at $163+ million. Their estimated total is inching closer to that luxury tax. They're about on par with the Dodgers payroll at the moment. So whether or not they want to add another third baseman or add someone to the bullpen, we'll have to see. But this is a good move, I would say. Bringing in a guy who, can at least be a decent hitter. And no big loss here to the Yankees, who saw Didi go in free agency. They got Gleyber Torres at shortstop, and they can move DJ LeMahieu to second base. And with the third base situation still kind of up in the air at the moment, they have both Urshela and Andujar. Maybe they can shift one of those guys. I know LeMahieu can play all over the infield, so no big deal here to the Yankees. And sticking around in the National League East for a second, the New York Mets have been quite active in adding a few starting pitchers. And I chuckle because they have signed Rick Porcello and Michael Wacha. Wow. All right, Metis, what do you got? Well, Porcello is coming in on a 1-year, $10 million deal. The right-hander was as bad as he's ever been in 2019. In 174 plus innings, he managed a career worst 5.52 ERA and a career worst 4.76 FIP. He got murdered by the long ball. Mets are kind of taking a chance on Porcello, thinking he'll bounce back. But, what can you even expect from him? He's a durable guy, which means a lot for the Mets, considering the injuries they've suffered to Grom and Syndergaard and Matz, and even some guys who aren't on the team anymore, like Harvey and Wheeler. So for a guy like Porcello, who in his 11 Major League seasons has, at the minimum, clocked in 170 innings and 28 starts, that's the kind of stability you would like. Also in his career, Porcello owns a 99 ERA+, so adjusted to ballpark, he's about a notch below average as far as Major League starting pitching goes. And his career ERA 4.36, FIP 4.09, WHIP 1.311. Not great, yeah, right around that sort of average territory. But the Mets aren't exactly pining for some sort of high-end starter. They already got that on paper with Strasburg, DeGrom, and Stroman. They just need somebody who they know is going to stay healthy to round out the rotation. And in that sense, this is actually a good deal to go and get somebody like Porcello. Again, kind of hoping that he'll bounce back, but not a bad move. They also brought in another right-hander, a veteran by the name of Michael Wacha. Another one-year deal, just a $3 million base salary with $7 million in incentives. Wacha, who's a client of Mets GM Brodie Van Wagenen's former agency, is coming off also a very underwhelming 2019. He threw just 126 innings, 4.76 ERA, 5.61 FIP, and a WHIP north of 1.5. He's a high home run, high walk kind of guy. He was good early in his career, got injured. Since then, he's managed to stay fairly healthy, kind of. But since 2015, just 44% of his starts have been quality, so he's been kind of a below average back of the rotation guy, which is, I guess, why they got him. So if you want to look at it this way, the Mets rotation currently stands at DeGrom, Stroman, Syndergaard, Porcello, and then either Wacha or perhaps Steven Matz if he gets healthy. So a downgrade either way from Zach Wheeler. Maybe they should have traded him. But hey, they also got Stroman at that deadline, which I would argue is actually an upgrade. We'll see how either of these guys turn out, but the Metis going off and getting some starting pitching. The winter meetings are known for being a place where trades often go down. This year, that was not the case. Now, I'm not complaining considering some really high-level guys got signed, but there were only 2 trades of note in this entire week. I guess the bigger one was Nomar Mazara getting traded from Texas to the Chicago White Sox in exchange for outfield prospect Steele Walker. So an exchange of 2 young outfielders. Mazara, he's just 24 years old, though he's been in the majors for 4 seasons now. He's a career .261 hitter with a .320 on-base percentage. He's hit either 19 or 20 home runs exactly every single season, and he's good for 25-plus doubles. So a decent, half-decent bat. Mazara comes with 2 more years of arbitration control. He's projected to earn $5.7 million next season. And you can pretty well expect him to round out the White Sox outfield with Eloy Jimenez, who's already there. And if Luis Robert shows up, boom, there you go. Not a bad addition, a guy who, despite his youth, it does come with some experience, whereas these other White Sox youngsters are all rookies or not, or even less, right? And with his age, there's still, a bit of hope you can say that Mazara can take his game to an even higher level. So, not a bad addition for a White Sox team that's ramping things up and starting to eye competition. A couple of knocks on Mazara is he's not a very good outfielder, and that's playing the corner outfield spots. And he's consistently not good. -5 defensive runs saved on his career. He'll probably start in right field given the White Sox situation. And even as a hitter, Mazara, playing in hitter-friendly Globe Life Park or Stadium, or I don't know because they have a new one. It's also Globe Life. Get it together, Texas. He's had a bit of a boost playing at home with an above-average OPS plus, but below average on the road. We'll see how he does over at Guaranteed Rate Field. As for the Rangers, they continue to have just a really strange regime under GM John Daniels, where they're in limbo, effectively, and here they are trading one of their younger pieces for an even younger guy at the same position. So who is Steel Walker, and why did his parents name him Steel? Well, he's 23-year-old left-handed batter from Texas. He's now the number 12 prospect in the Rangers organization. Walker has topped out at high A. Last season, across 2 single A levels, he batted .284 with an .811 OPS in 120 games. So he's already finding some success. He's a center fielder, almost exclusively, so that's kind of cool. It might still be a few years removed from the majors, but the Rangers have already said that Walker will start next season in Double-A. So yeah, we might see this guy in 2021 or 2022. Could he be an upgrade over Mazara in the long run? I don't know. Kind of a fair deal, I guess, with one team looking long-term, one team looking short-term. The other trade that went down is even less exciting. So the Giants acquired infielder Zach Cozart and shortstop prospect Will Wilson from the Angels for cash considerations. Yay, a salary dump. And a very appropriate salary dump. So the Angels brought in Cozart on a 3-year, $38 million deal. And the result has been an atrocity. In 2 seasons, Cozart has managed a combined 96 games. And in that span, he's batted .190 with a .261 on base and a slugging below .300. It's been a disaster. In 2019, as a matter of fact, he ended his season in July because of shoulder surgery. It's been really, really disappointing for the Angels, considering before that, when he was with the Reds, Cozart was actually an okay hitter. He's a guy who can play shortstop, second base, and third base. He'll be joining a Giants infield rotation that includes the likes of Evan Longoria, Brandon Crawford, and Joe Panik, some other underperforming, sometimes injured veterans. He'll also have to compete with the much younger Mauricio Dubon. Dubon has been hitting fairly well since he came to the majors, so it'll be interesting to see how this all gets sorted out. But hey, it's a good bet that one of these guys is going to get hurt, I guess. So the Giants, Cozart has 1 year left on his contract. It's $12.17 million. The Giants will pay that salary, so good news for an Angels team that could stand to cut some payroll, even though they're not super, super high. And in order to sweeten the deal, the Angels actually threw in prospect, a well-regarded prospect named Will Wilson. 21 years old at the moment. He was a first-round pick in 2019 out of North Carolina State. He hit well in rookie ball, and now he's the Giants' number 10 prospect. Considering the fact that longtime shortstop Brandon Crawford is a free agent after 2021, Will Wilson could be the future there in San Fran. So, in a way, this is kind of a good deal for the Giants just because they managed to get Wilson, and I'd say a good deal for the Angels because they finally managed to get rid of Zach Cozart. But yeah, that's the 2 trades that happened this past week. Wow. Well, the Giants weren't done there. They also acquired a starting pitcher by the name of Kevin Gausman on a 1-year deal worth $9 million. Gausman, the 28-year-old lefty, was non-tendered by the Reds. He's mostly been a starter in his career, but was pushed to the bullpen in Cincinnati, where he found a little bit of success after a rough first half with the Braves. Out of the pen, Gausman managed a 4.03 ERA, and that's with a 3.17 FIP. good strikeout rate. Somewhat of a small sample size in 22 innings, but it's clear he's still got something. This is a guy who was all right back when he was with the Orioles. At the moment, looking more like a swingman, maybe a back-end guy for the Giants. Either way, a welcome addition. That Giants rotation was bad in 2019. I could see a guy like Gossman making the rotation. Not an awful signing. $9 million, you could argue, is a little high for a guy who might just end up a long reliever, but just for 1 year. And it's like, hey, we're already taking a guy like Zach Kozar. Let's just spend some more money on some guys who aren't necessarily going to help us win. I don't think the Giants are going to really be pushing towards competition anytime soon. So, some more NL West action. The Dodgers made a move, bringing in right-handed relief pitcher Blake Treinen on a 1-year deal worth $10 million. I like this deal for the Dodgers. Treinen was a good reliever up until last season. In fact, in 2018, he was unbelievable for the Athletics. He was not just an all-star, he got Cy Young and MVP votes. I won't get into his numbers, though they are incredible, because he fell off a cliff and deep into a gorge in 2019. He converted just 3/4 of his save opportunities, lost his closer gig. His ERA and FIP were both around 5, and he walked 37 guys in 58-plus innings. It was just bad. But as I mentioned, Treinen was quite effective throughout his whole career up until last season, so kind of a good bet for a bounce-back year from the guy. Then, hey, the Dodgers, they do need some bullpen reinforcements. They needed it last season. So they went out and they signed Joe Kelly, and I was like, you know what? This guy's not that good. He was just good in the World Series, and you know what? It didn't work out. Kenley Jansen also had kind of a rough year. The team just converted just 60% of their saves in 2019 and had the second highest inherited scoring percentage in Major League Baseball. So Kenley, Pedro Baez, they need some help. I like this signing for the Dodgers. And the Colorado Rockies were also doing things. They brought back, or rather extended, right-handed relief pitcher Scott Oberg. Gave him 3 years at $13 million, plus a $8 million option for that last year. And that $8 million is pretty sweet, considering he's getting a $4+ million average. In 2019, Oberg threw 56 innings of 2.25 ERA ball. That's with a 3.54 FIP. A whip of about 1.1. Didn't give up too many home runs and struck out a lot of guys, which is commendable considering he plays a lot of course field. And matter of fact, his home-away splits aren't too dramatic either. Now, what makes Oberg just that much more valuable is the fact that the Rockies' bullpen in 2019 was a natural disaster. Second worst save percentage in the majors. They're considered to have the second worst pitching staff behind Baltimore by basically every measure. This is a very good low-cost deal for the cash-strapped Rockies to bring in a guy like Oberg or bring him or extend him long-term. They don't have much going around that. They'll need Wade Davis to kind of get it together, but otherwise they just need guys who can pitch. Rotation horrible. Switching gears over to the AL East, which was another very active division this past week. In the foregone conclusion of the year, the New York Yankees re-signed Brett Gardner for a 1-year deal worth $8 million, plus a $10 million option for 2021. Gardner, 36-year-old lefty, 12 Major League seasons, all with the Yankees. Was there any doubt that he was going to come back? I don't think so. 2019 was kind of a weird year for him. His batting average was below his career average, but he was slugging like he's never slugged before. He had a career-high 28 home runs to go with 26 doubles, 7 triples, and 10 stolen bases. We know the guy is a good base runner. He's an average to above-average hitter and a decent defender with +5 defensive runs saved in his career. Gardner, fan favorite over there in the Bronx, and more valuable than a lot of people would imagine, not just because of his skill set, but because That Yankees team's taken a lot of injuries the last few seasons, and Gardner's been managed to step up and fill some holes in the outfield every single time. A good and expected move for the Yankees to make. The Toronto Blue Jays, meanwhile, they got a lot of young guys coming up. They got some promise. But all these top prospects, your Guerreros, your Bichettes, your Babigios, your Jansons, these guys are all playing in the field. The Blue Jays have absolutely zero pitching. They already got Matt Shoemaker this season, or this hot stove. Why not go and get Tanner Roark? Yeah, right-handed starting pitcher on a 2-year deal with $24 million. Jeez. As I said, the Jays really, really needed rotation help. Looking at who they got going on beyond Shoemaker. Wilmer Font was good last season, but he's kind of been a swingman throughout his career. And then they got a couple sophomores who had bad rookie seasons anyway. In 2019, Roark threw 165 innings of 4.35 ERA baseball. That's 4.67 FIP to go with it. And a whip north of 1.4. Not great. It's kind of par for course for Roark. Yeah, he's had some good seasons in the past when he was with the Nationals, but overall he's been kind of a mediocre pitcher. $12 million a year is kind of an overpay in that sense, but considering the Jays have a really low payroll and just a really big need in the rotation, I can't really knock this signing. Roark's been something of a workhorse, and he's a veteran. Maybe he'll teach Tyler Thornton a few things. And the Red Sox were busy adding some more unspectacular additions, bringing in Martin Perez, left-handed starter, on a 1-year deal, $6 million salary. Perez, he's got 8 years under his belt at this point. Career ERA of 4.72, FIP of 4.48, and a whip of 1.486. Not great. Kind of know who this guy is, a number 4, number 5 guy. And in particular, Perez has been bad the last 2 seasons, in which he's managed a FIP and an ERA about 5, very high walk rate. And in the 44 starts he's made in the last 2 seasons, just a third of them have been quality. His 2019 with the Twins got off to a decent start, and then he just totally tanked in the second half. But hey, the Red Sox, they need somebody to fill that rotation. They were hit hard by injuries in 2019. Only 2 of their starting pitchers had north of 150 innings pitched. One of them is Porcello. He's gone. The other is Eduardo Rodriguez. The Red Sox had a very disappointing 2019 overall, but if they want to come back and make some noise in 2020, they're going to need health from Sale. They're going to need quality and health from Eovaldi, and they're going to need Perez to start to get it back together. And I didn't mention David Price because Price has been all over the trade rumors. Yeah, the Red Sox are shopping David Price, which makes sense. He has a very high salary, and the Red Sox have a very high payroll. At the moment, their team payroll is at $215 million. That's $10 million above the luxury tax, and we're not even getting into arbitration. So to get rid of a guy like Price, who's making $32 million for the next 3 seasons, and he's already 34, and he's already had some injury issues recently. Yeah, not great, but there is a lot of interest in Price. Some of the teams in on him include the White Sox, the Reds, the Angels, the Padres, and the Cardinals. No shortage of suitors for a guy who, despite his salary, despite a little bit of health woes, very, very effective guy. There's a reason he got paid so much in the first place. So it'll be interesting to see if Chaim Bloom and the Red Sox can swing that one. They managed to swing another contract this past week, and that was infielder Jose Peraza on a 1-year, $3 million deal. Peraza, the 25-year-old, had a very up and down career. It was career batting average 273, but with an OPS plus of just 80, so he's considered below average in the parts of 5 seasons that he's played. 2019 with the Reds, he hit just 239. But the Red Sox needed a cost-effective option to cover second base a little bit while Dustin Pedroia is on the verge of, I was going to say death. He's not dying, guys. Dustin Pedroia is okay, but he's had a lot of injuries. Peraza played a lot of shortstop. and outfield, but second base is actually his best position, and that's with +1 defensive run saved in his career. So, not wild about this one, but hey, it's somebody. And the Tampa Bay Rays said, hey, I've seen all these deals going down. Why not do a little bit ourselves? They signed Japanese slugger Yoshitomo Tsutsugo to a 2-year contract worth $12 million, plus the $2.4 million posting fee they had to pay to his NPB team, the Yokohama Bay Stars. Tsutsugo is a 28-year-old left-handed bat. He's got 10 seasons of Japanese pro ball under his belt, all with Yokohama. Career slash of 284, 382, 525. Ever since, and including the 2014 season, he's been quite consistent. He's hit 20-plus home runs every season with a 900-plus OPS. His 2019 batting average of 272 was a low in that span. He's good for 24-plus doubles, and he draws a lot of walks. Tsutsugo is also a 5-time NPB All-Star. He's won the NPB Home Run Derby twice. This is exciting because Japan hasn't really produced a slugger who's come over to the MLB since, I would say, Hideki Matsui. But Tsutsugo is not like Matsui. He has been compared to Kyle Schwarber in the fact he's kind of a stocky, high-power, patient-at-the-plate guy who has unspectacular, if suspect, defense, but a good arm. Tsutsugo has played a lot of left field and third base, though both those positions are kind of covered for the Rays as far as Hunter Renfroe and Yandy Diaz at left and third, respectively. But Tsutsugo also has experience at first base where he could split some time with Ji-Man Choi. Could also play some DH. And you know what? He'll probably see some corner outfield too in Tampa Bay because that Rays team has kind of a rotation system going on with their position players. And what this means for the Rays is a couple things. Number one, it's the addition of another power hitter to that lineup that already includes the likes of Austin Meadows and Hunter Renfroe. Going to be hitting a lot of home runs at Tropicana that no one's going to catch. And you know what? On a positive note for Rays fans, they went out and they signed a guy on a good deal. They signed a guy with good potential on a good deal. I mean, he'll only be making $6 million a season. And, I mean, yeah, there's a good chance he might bust. But if not, they have another good player. And that team, you know, they just need some support. They got a talented roster. They just need to take it to the next level. A couple more Rays news that has nothing to do with acquisitions, but that I thought was just interesting or funny. One of the low-key storylines of this hot stove that I've been watching as a Canadian is the Rays-Montreal saga. Because apparently their owner, Stuart Sternberg, has been vocal about the fact that it's not working out in Tampa Bay. He said, quote, he can't envision the team staying in Tampa full-time. He tried to have them split games between Tampa and Montreal starting in the near future, which had some Canadian baseball fans mildly excited that this could mean the return of the Expos, or at least pro baseball to Montreal, or at the very least, and this is what I care about, just having another pro baseball team other than the Blue Jays. We're tired of hearing about Toronto, especially people who live nowhere near Toronto. We don't care about the Blue Jays. We don't really care about Vladimir Guerrero Jr. Let him hit placatas for all he freaking wants. He's nowhere near here. Well, that deal to have them split time with Montreal fell through, but the Rays' lease on Tropicana Field expires in 2027, so we'll have at least 7 more years of baseball at the Trop. Sweet. That's going to be a disaster, man. Like, they better keep that stadium maintained, because that place could look really ugly and depressing come, like, 2025. And a bit of a backtrack, well, previous to the winter meetings, the Rays pulled off a notable trade when they shipped out Tommy Pham over to the Padres for Hunter Renfroe, and the two teams also exchanged infield prospects. Well, when this trade was broken, Rays starting pitcher Blake Snell was streaming himself playing video games on Twitch like a freaking nerd. He heard about this deal, He was upset that Pham was gone, which I can understand. Maybe they were friends in the clubhouse. And if not, Pham was a valuable player in that Rays lineup. And he expressed his frustration by calling the prospect the Rays acquired in that trade, shortstop Xavier Edwards, a slapdick prospect. Now, I love this. I've never heard the term slapdick. I chuckled when I heard this. Bad PR, yeah, but Snell promptly apologized to Edwards. And I wouldn't really echo that and say Edwards is a slapdick kind of player. He is a well-regarded prospect. He's currently 14th in the Rays organization. He's a good contact hitter with great speed. All I could hope for out of this situation is that this is not going to happen. The Players' Weekend of the future, Xavier Edwards wears slapdick on the back of his jersey. Well, backtracking a little bit to the Tsutsugo situation, this was not the only Asian baseball-related deal that went down. No, in fact, there was a surprising amount of deals where guys were either going from the majors to Japan, or players were coming over from Japan or Korea to the majors. Starting off with Adam Jones. The veteran outfielder is going to the NPB. He signed a 2-year, 869 million yen contract with the Oryx Buffaloes. That's 2 years, $8 million with an option. It makes him one of the highest paid players in Japan, where the highest salary is of $5.85 million US dollars to pitcher Tomoyuki Sugano. As for Jones, well, last year's hot stove, he had to wait till the very end in order to cut a minor league deal with the Diamondbacks. He found his way into the majors, and in 2019, he ended up batting .260 with 16 home runs, 25 doubles, .313 on-base percentage, but just an 87 OPS plus, so below average batting. His defense is continuing to decline, and you know what? His 2019 was even worse than 2018. And if after that he struggled to get a minor league deal, I guess Adam Drews was like, you know what? I'm not gonna easily get a payday over here in North America. So the 34-year-old said, "Ohayo gozaimasu," and he's coming to Japan. This is pretty cool because I can't really remember the last time a high-profile major leaguer was going over to the NPB. Kevin Youkilis did it at the end of his career, and then he barely played in Japan. So a guy like Jones is still healthy and a guy who can still hit, at least at some level, and who's a great clubhouse guy going over to Osaka's Oryx Buffaloes. Pretty cool. I wish him all the best. And hey, Japan, take care of the guy, please. He's well regarded over here in North America. Also on the move across the Pacific, the Brewers signed right-handed pitcher Josh Lindblom to a 3-year deal worth just north of $9 million. Now, who is Josh Lindblom? Well, he's had a very weird career. He pitched in the majors from 2011 to 2014. Wasn't very good. Went over to Korea, to the KBO, the Korean Baseball Organization, for 2 seasons. Wasn't successful. Came back to North America in 2017. Managed to make it to the majors with the Pirates. Failed. Went back to Korea, and something changed, something clicked. Started eating his bulgogi, started eating his beef and rice, and just cranked it up a level. His last 2 seasons in Korea, Lindblom has been excellent. He's won the Korean equivalent to the Cy Young, the Choi Dong-won Award, twice. And in 2019, he won the MVP of Korea. Wow. He's had an excellent strikeout-to-walk ratio. He's had an ERA just around 3. And you know what? For a guy who... and you know what? That's in a hitter-friendly Korean league. So, props to him. As I mentioned, he was not very good in the majors. Pretty average to below average by a lot of statistics over his major league career. But hey, maybe something just really clicked. And you know what? The Brewers, they need some pitching. Their rotation's looking pretty thin with Chacin and Gonzalez hitting free agency. At the moment, their rotation stands at Brandon Woodruff, Adrian Hauser, and Eric Lauer, who they acquired in that Grisham Rios trade, and now also Josh Lindblom. Once again, 32-year-old righty on a 3-year, $9 million deal. Affordable, interesting, could be reminiscent of Eric Thames, who the Brewers signed after he resurrected his career in Korea. And one more guy crossing the ocean is left-handed relief pitcher Joely Rodriguez. Rodriguez played in the majors with the Phillies from 2016 to 17. Was not very good. A lot of walks, 5.40 ERA in 36 innings. He was bad in AAA as well, to be honest, but he moved over to Japan, and the last 2 seasons he's been working out of the pen with the Chunichi Dragons. In an 87 plus innings, he's managed a 185 ERA and 103 strikeouts over there. So that was enough to intrigue the Texas Rangers to bring him over on a 2-year, $5.5 million deal. And you know what? The Rangers, they need it. Their bullpen was at or below average last season. They also have one of the weirdest pitching staffs in the majors, kind of similar to the Rays, in that they have a lot of guys who work as openers, and they rely a lot on just relievers in general, next to a bunch of seasoned, if unspectacular, arms like Mike Minor and Lance Lynn and the newly signed Kyle Gibson. So signing a guy who went over to Japan and came back, yeah, this sounds about right for the Rangers. And just one more deal I want to break, and that is the Minnesota Twins signed catcher Austin Romine to a 1-year, $4.1 million deal. Romine's coming off a career year in New York with the Yankees. In 2019, he batted .281 with a 748 OPS, well above his career marks of .239 and 647. He managed 20 extra base hits in 72 games. Romine profiles as an average framer, though he does have +7 defensive run saves over the last 2 years. He will pair with Mitch Garber, who's got a pretty good bat over there in Minnesota. Nice little sign for the Twins, or a team that's, getting some depth. And that about calls it for the winter meetings, which means let's go over to the CUBSCAST. What did the Cubs do in the winter meetings, right? They did absolutely freaking nothing. I was half expecting them to finally pull a move and trade one of these core guys, but that didn't happen. One of the reasons is because Chris Bryant is still having his grievance considered by Major League Baseball, and if the MLB concludes that the Cubs fucked him over by keeping him in AAA for a week in order to get an extra year of team control, which, let's be honest, a lot of major league clubs do that. Not to say the Cubs are innocent or anything like that, but this is a loophole that teams just abuse. Put it on the next CBA, let them strike about it, whatever, but that decision hasn't come through, and that could seriously affect Bryant's trade value if he is under team control for just one more season as opposed to just 2 more seasons. So he hasn't been moved, nor has anybody else. The only news that came out of the winter meetings and regarding the Cubs is the fact that Anthony Rizzo's agent wanted to talk extension, and the Cubs front office said no. Not at this time. Which leaves me with a dry taste in my mouth, because Anthony Rizzo is a guy who's given so much to this organization. He's been here through thick and thin. He came in here for the long haul when this team still sucked, when we had friggin' Dale Sveum or whatever as the manager. He signed a team-friendly deal to be here for the immediate term. And you know what? He's paid off. He's a consistent player. He's an all-around hitter. He's a great clubhouse guy, great off the field, excellent glove. As a former first baseman myself, I love Rizzo. I would love to see him be a Cub for life. I think the desire from him to be a Cub for life is there. I can kind of understand why the Cubs from a business perspective don't necessarily want to talk extension now when they're not exactly sure of what their roster is going to look like, because if they start talking extension with Rizzo openly, that's going to sort of cascade, and it's going to be like, oh, well, that means they're not going to keep Contreras, they're not going to keep Bryant, they're not going to keep this and that, and who knows, maybe they get a really good offer for Rizzo, and they're like, okay, you know what, let's pull the trigger on this and get a huge return. So far, the Cubs have said they are talking extension with Baez. I'd like them to talk extension with Rizzo too, but I guess not. Hopefully hopefully Rizzo and his agent understand that, hey, this is just business. Right now is not the time. Maybe in like January or February when this team decides what they want to do, they can talk extension. Yeah, it hasn't been a very good offseason so far for the Cubs. Mostly just because nothing's really gotten done, and a lot of the talk, well, it could just be agate prop, could just be some propaganda, some other executives rubbing their hands saying, let's make the Cubs look bad. Hasn't been that great. It hasn't been that super exciting. But the hot stove as a whole has been pretty exciting. It's strange how here we are in mid-December and already a lot of the top free agents are gone. I mean, last year we had to wait till, January for this to go down? It's crazy. You might be asking yourself, well, who's left? Is there anybody worth minding the stove for? I tell you, yes. Matter of fact, I have compiled together my all free agent team. These are the best guys left. And if I was to put them all in the starting lineup, here's how it would look. Behind the plate, I mentioned before the catcher market has developed quite a bit, so Robinson Chirinos is the best catcher left. There are some intriguing options. Martin Maldonado is considered a very good defensive catcher. Jonathan Lucroy is available. But yeah, Chirinos I thought was kind of the safest bet. Over at first base, Eric Thames, good hitter. Second base, not totally exciting, but Jonathan Scope. He did have a good bounce back year in Minnesota. Third base, Josh Donaldson, arguably one of the best, if not the best hitters left on the market. Over at shortstop, this is where things get very thin. Jose Iglesias is the best pure shortstop left, though you could make an argument for Asdrubal Cabrera, who's more of a third baseman but does have shortstop experience. He's a better hitter than Iglesias, but again, he's more of a third baseman, but he's also available. Over in the outfield, things are kind of cool. You got Marcell Ozuna and Nicolas Castellanos in the corners, and just because there wasn't really a pure center fielder, I moved Puig over to center. And you also got Corey Dickerson and Avisail Garcia also available, a couple more good hitting outfielders. And if I had to put a designated hitter spot, Edwin Encarnacion is available. Heck of a power hitter. And as far as pitching goes, well, my rotation looks a lot like this. Hyunjin Ryu, Dallas Keuchel, Madison Bumgarner, very good front three. And then Julio Teheran and Rich Hill rounding things out. A couple of question marks around those guys. Hill with his age and injury issues, though he has been very effective when healthy. And Teheran, though he's never really lived up to his expectations, he's all right. And moving over to the bullpen, not sure exactly who I'd have as my closer. I pegged Will Harris just because he's kind of the best on paper, though Dayin Betances is also available, and so is Daniel Hudson. So still some good pitchers to go around, and if I was to expand this to like a full 7-person bullpen, which for some reason this is where I draw the line in my baseball nerdiness, there's a bunch of veteran arms left who you might take in consideration at. Well, anyway, that wraps up the 2019 Winter Meetings. I hope everybody had a good time minding the stove. Things got pretty hot there for a second, which is awesome. I'll be sticking around, taking a look at the elements for the rest of the winter. We'll see what goes down. Maybe some big trades. A lot of big trade whispers have been going around. And I don't just mean David Price or Wilson Contreras or Chris Bryant. So we'll see what goes down. And breaking news, Brett Anderson is coming to Milwaukee. Yay. The Brewers just continue to kind of add depth to their rotation. Brett Anderson, kind of an average to just above average career pitcher, has always been kind of a back of the rotation guy. Actually got a good 2019. That was his best season since 2015. He was with the Dodgers. So not a bad move for the Brewers, honestly. I mean, they're at a point where they're just kind of like they took a chance on that Josh Lindblom guy. They're just trying to find guys to fill this rotation. They're not a big spending team, though maybe they should be. I feel like they're never going to find the success that they could have been because of that approach. And Christian Yelich is going to walk away without a ring. But hey, that's Milwaukee's lost. Wrigley North forever. Stoveminders forever. It's raining again. But the stove, it's warm.